I'll pull up the.
Welcome in to the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Use code DNVR when you sign up for a new account to get amazing odds boosts. I'm your host, Rudo, joined by AJ Haefele. As the name on the tin says, we will be talking quite a bit about the Avs and their expansion draft setup, all the things surrounding that. But first, some other news to get to in Avalanche land. Cale Makar and Mikko Rantanen named to NHL All-Star teams. Makar named to the first team, and Mikko named to the second team.
It was close though.
Yeah,
Rantanen. I think Rantanen only missed out by. It was just a couple of points, and Marner only had I think 3 extra first place votes.
Yeah.
So that was actually a tight race.
Mikko obviously ended up being the Avs' highest point total getter this year because McKinnon missed a handful of games. Just kind of the way that things panned out. Congrats to them, I guess. I think much like the regular awards, the Avs players mostly don't care too much about these types of things at this point, but neat.
If they've got contract bonuses, they care.
Yeah, that's true. Mikko doesn't have any contract bonuses, but
yeah, if they've got $200,000 on the line or something, you know. You probably are watching that award ceremony a little closer, that gets them a little closer to their yacht.
Yeah, exactly right. One less punch into the yacht fund, I guess.
Yeah, straight up.
I don't know. That $200K is gonna look like nothing pretty soon here for Cale, but
yeah.
That's a one paycheck pretty soon for him.
That $80 million deal that he's barreling towards.
Yeah, it's gonna be a different life at that point for him. But either way, congratulations to them. Definitely well deserved on both their parts, I would say.
We've talked Eichel and Jones already, my man.
I mean,
it happened.
I don't think we'll talk Eichel at all, really. I think we might tangentially get into the Jones stuff a little bit, but it won't be the main topic, certainly, for the day.
We did a whole show on it already, is what I mean. We did this. Yep. So we talked all about Seth Jones and the Avs. Eichel. Look, I sent out a tweet yesterday that was more cheeky than anything else, but I will tell you, look, Colorado's checked in. They poked around.
It would be negligence if they didn't, right?
Yeah, I would say that I wouldn't take Colorado seriously in that running unless that market really has a problem materializing. So,
yeah. So,
yep.
It's a fun thought, but
yeah,
there's not even smoke to that fire yet. So
yeah, I mean, I don't even think anybody is trading for Eichel anytime soon until the back neck injury stuff starts to get sorted out.
Yeah,
and then they can teams start to get some medical information. You know, they're taking on a significant financial investment.
Well, so. I mean, and since we're here, that's also why I was so surprised that there has been so much smoke around Seth Jones lately, in that it seems really hard to move that dude before the expansion draft.
Yeah. I mean, I would be surprised if that happened. So
and this is the case for probably most move this year. Yes, we saw Arvidsson get moved, but he's about the only one so far.
Yeah, and I think the only other moves that we will see before that will be
teams desperate to sort out their expansion draft situation. Basically,
it will be expansion draft related. Yes.
Yeah. Because beyond that, teams, especially this year with the flat cap and all this other stuff going on, they're not giving away those protected slots for free in the expansion draft at all.
And teams need to know, like, financially, roster wise, what happens in expansion for them to really start to move on. You know, what hole do they need to fill, if any? You know, whatever is going to happen needs to happen there. But before teams can really get to the real business, I think there's a chance that the 2 days between the expansion draft and the entry draft, there's a chance, I think, that those days are bananas.
Yep. So there's a chance that there's also a chance that absolutely nothing happens on the other side of the
There
spectrum.
is.
So
every time you hear a guy like me start to predict, oh, this is going to be silly season, and nothing happens, and you're just like, okay.
3 hours into our live show, like,
Yeah, well then, this was exciting stuff, guys.
Yeah, very likely the NHL season coming to a close tonight as well. Yeah, it's. I don't think anyone would expect a reverse sweep out of Montreal. We'll put it that way. But
Yeah.
Anyway, that's most of the news for the day. I guess one other thing, definitely thoughts go out to Columbus and the Kivlenieks family.
Yeah,
obviously
awful.
the terrible news there. The passing of, is it Mattis or Matisse? Matisse Kivlenieks, 24 years old, had played a couple of games in the NHL too.
Yeah, a real bummer.
Definitely, this stuff happens every so often, and it's never any easier. So
yeah, I mean, I still remember when Alexei Cherepanov passed away.
Yeah,
you know, it's always really tough. You see someone so young, so much future still ahead of them. It's tough, man.
Yep. So, yeah, definitely thoughts out over there.
Now we have to take a really awkward hard left turn into talking about a game.
Now it's back to work. Life goes on for everybody sometimes. But in any case, looking at the Avs expansion draft, I see someone in chat asking, could the Avs trade Graves instead of having him just taken? Sure, they could. There's a lot of guesses there, though.
I'm not sure I totally understand the premise of the question there.
But conceptually, this would be assuming that Seattle is going to take Ryan Graves.
Okay.
Could the Avs trade him instead?
To Seattle or elsewhere?
Not clear, but yes, they could. Okay. Theoretically.
Yeah,
totally. It would be pretty hard to do.
You think it would be hard to trade Graves?
I think it would be hard to trade any defenseman before the expansion draft. The defensive protection slots are at such a premium.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. That before the expansion draft, it would be tough to move him.
Nah, it might not be that tough to move him to Seattle, but if Seattle's planning on taking him, you just let him take him. You don't trade him.
Well, and we had this conversation the last time we did the mock draft that Seattle is going to have a lot of options.
Yep.
on defense.
Yep.
They're going to have way more interesting options on defense than they are at forward. Although I fully expect that to change in the next couple of weeks as teams start to protect guys.
Hammer out what's actually out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything's on the table until it's not, right? Things that look real interesting start getting shaved down real quick when teams actually submit their protected lists. But we'll have to wait and see for official lists. We'll do our best to give you what the Avs list will likely look like.
It's the 17th.
Yeah, the 17th
is when the lists are submitted, announced.
The teams have to have them in by the 17th, basically. I don't know that there's anything stopping them from submitting them before, but
could you imagine if a team just on the 14th was like, "We're good, we're set,
we know who we're set, we're protected. Here you go.
We don't need to do this anymore.
Sort your stuff out." So we'll see on that one. Honestly, I don't think this is a very complicated process for the most part for the Avs, but we'll go through all of the options and consider every angle to look at here. Starts with the goaltender position, the most straightforward one. Every single team only protects one goaltender. If the Avs believe there is any decent chance of Philip Grubauer coming back, that's an easy protect.
Yeah.
I really don't think there's much more to it than that unless they're confident he's gone. And then I guess you protect Francouz just in case.
Well, you have to have at least one goaltender exposed.
JoJo would cover that.
Yeah, I guess he would.
Actually, Miska would cover it too, technically.
Yeah, I think that's why Miska got the 2-year deal. But not the point now.
Yeah. Ended up not really mattering, but
yeah. Well, and I guess technically Dubnyk probably would count as well.
I don't think so because he's UFA, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
the goalie contract rule is the one that's always kind of tripped me up.
That's the one where it's like there's no games played requirement.
Yeah.
As long as they're either under contract or an RFA that has been qualified.
My brain hurts. Anyway, not gonna matter.
But yeah, I don't even think there's really any reason delving into the reasons of protecting Francouz.
Apparently he's exempt.
Is he? So they didn't count the 2 games he was on the bench for this year?
I guess, man.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've got the cap friendly tool pulled up and they have him as exempt. So
okay, well then it literally doesn't matter. You just protect Philip Grubauer then.
Yeah.
Easy enough.
And if they take JoJo, then you just have a hearty laugh about it because it's like what a wild story that ends up being. You trade for him. You delay the announcement of the trade for a day because of a COVID test. Making sure that you didn't just trade for a guy with COVID. And then you get him. He wasn't any good. He got dunked on by Buffalo media. And then goes, 5-1 for you? And you sign him to a deal, and then he gets taken in expansion. And it's just kind of like, all right, well, you're back to looking for a third goalie again.
Yeah, Adam Werner would be an RFA and available in the expansion draft.
They have him as protected or exempt as well.
Puckpedia has him as eligible.
There have been some differences between these two lately.
So maybe a little unclear there. Also, kind of the same story, though. If Seattle wants Adam Werner, then the Avs just say, okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, straight up. Colorado's one of the teams that will have an option on forward and defense for a legit NHL player.
Yep.
They're not going to have that. They're not going to have that option from every team.
It
would
be very weird for Seattle to take a goalie from Colorado.
Basically. Well, and it would be like there's like it would be stupid of them to take like Jacob McDonald.
Yeah.
Like we know that they have put an all-star team of an analytics department together, right? Like we've all seen the people that they've hired and the department that they've built out. But it's like if you take Jacob McDonald, the Avs are going to be like, okay, thanks.
Jacob McDonald's underlying analytics may look very good. They're also a sample size of 30 games.
Right.
There's something to be said about that compared to other players that will be available with significantly larger sample sizes.
Yeah, well, and Jacob McDonald is 28 years old.
Yep.
So how much are you believing in any of that?
Yeah.
You know, like, are you believing that he had the breakout? It's not that guys can't figure it out late in their careers. But
you're Seattle and you have bona fide NHLers to pick from. Are you really taking that gamble?
Yeah. Right. And you have all the expansion or all the salary cap room in the world. You don't need to mess around. Like
you don't need to pick and choose 900K guys to
right.
Yeah.
It would be stupid to take Jacob McDonald. And if they're going to do something stupid, then you just say thank you. You know, I know we're going to talk certainly about JT Compher and the $3 million players that we've all kind of zeroed in on as the guys that could get taken in this thing. But if they take Logan O'Connor, then you just kind of shrug and move on.
Yeah. Look, obviously, I think the Avs would prefer to probably shed more cap than one of those guys. But if you end up in that situation, you look at it and say, hey, the team didn't really get worse.
They had a chance. They had a chance to take a guy who had a real role on the team that won the President's Trophy, and instead they took Logan O'Connor. You know, like you just sort of shrug and you're like, okay, well, that happened. You know, like, oh, all right. You like Logan O'Connor. There's lots of reasons to believe that he's going to be a decent fourth line guy for them in the future. We saw they certainly missed him in the postseason, especially with no Matt Calvert. But
I mean,
do you remember the second game that Logan O'Connor played? Because that's the one that you have to keep in mind where you're like, right.
It's just a different world going into this expansion draft, right? The Avs aren't that team this year. The Avs aren't the Detroit of the world where they're protecting all of their decent players and scraps are left.
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at the Avs. I know Chad has touched on this already, but you look at what the Avs protected at Vegas, and it's like Matt Nieto and Sven Andrighetto and Rocco Grimaldi.
Yep.
You know, like Blake Como. Like they didn't. There wasn't anything left after they got done protecting the couple of easy. Okay, well, obviously you protect that guy. There wasn't a lot left, so. That's not going to be the case this time around. The Avs this, you know, as you mentioned with Grubauer at goaltender, it's a really easy decision. You just you protect Grubauer and you're done.
We will continue going through the rest of their lineup, but we do need to take a quick one here as we are brought to you by Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR. Got myself a little vanilla porter right here. This is actually old. I drank it like a while ago, but that's okay. Get yourself some at the DNVR bar or find a local liquor store near you. Take an eye out for their Good Company hard seltzer as well. Their 15-can sampler packs are just absolutely delicious. I know you delivered some to Z up there, and she seemed like she was enjoying the beers at least. Did she try to?
Big fan of Strawberry Sky.
All right. So call that a win.
Yeah.
We're also brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. Almost said Breckenridge Brewery again. You can use code DNVR when you sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook with a new account to get amazing odds boosts. Right now, they are giving you an amazing deal on McGregor versus Poirier 3 for UFC 264. They're giving you 264 to 1 odds. So if someone gets knocked out in the first round, either guy, doesn't matter who, you turn $1 into $264. Why not fire away and turn yourself in a decent little, not 200K, but that'll make a dent in the yacht fund for sure. $264 to play with. So pick your fighter you think will win by first round knockout and get your chance to win at $264 when you bet $1 on McGregor or Poirier. Either way, don't worry though, if MMA is not for you, they have you covered with all the other sports as well, whether it be baseball, which is the main one going on right now, of course, but of course NBA finals. Still time to bet on the NHL finals as well. As far as today, going on after that, it might get a little bit harder to bet on the NHL, but I guess the super early odds are out for next year's Cup, right? Avs are favorites there, but
yeah, I don't know.
I don't know the exact odds either, to be honest with you. I haven't looked at next year. We got expansion draft and other things to worry about more immediately on that one. But either way,
looking at next year's odds right now, I mean the league hasn't even reorganized itself. It hasn't added its 32nd team in yet. I'm not throwing any Hail Marys. Right.
NHL's got a lot of work to do yet.
Yeah.
So download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use that DNVR promo code to get that $1 into $264 bet for the main event of UFC 264. Again, remember to use that DNVR code. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook, must be 21 or older, Colorado only. Other terms, restrictions, and conditions apply. New customers only. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast, presented by that DraftKings Sportsbook with Rudo and AJ. Let's get into the defensive side of things. Again, I think this one is pretty straightforward for the Avs, with the assumption, and it seems pretty darn likely, that Erik Johnson waives his no-move clause. Assuming he does that, look, Makar and Girard are auto protects regardless.
And so is Taves.
Yeah, well, if in an alternate universe where EJ doesn't waive, you protect Makar and Girard.
Yeah. In that universe, you go 4-4.
You think?
Yeah.
So you expose
in that
Burakovsky.
Kadri.
Okay.
Although, boy, that hurts. If they take him, that hurts.
Luckily, that's probably not the world we're living in because EJ will waive his NMC. But
yeah, it hasn't been believed to be an issue for several months now. EJ and the NMC. So,
and yeah,
obviously, until it's official, there will be at least one of you listening who freaks out about it, but I would just say deep breaths. It's going to be okay. I think he'll waive, and I don't think it'll be any kind of an issue.
Yeah, like buyout is potentially an option as well, but
yeah, I mean, if he doesn't waive, then yes, you buy him out. That
just simplifies the equation.
Yeah, done.
And the Avs protect Makar, Girard,
which is more reason why he waives, because as I've said, he loses $4 million that way. And he's not going to recoup that $4 million over the next 2 years.
So it makes sense for everybody for EJ to waive.
Yeah.
The protection is super easy. Byram's exempt, so you don't have to worry about that. Timmins is also exempt because of the year that he missed. And you're left with the only real everyday NHL defenseman being exposed is Ryan Graves.
Yeah. He's your only regular on your defense that you have to worry about in the expansion draft.
Yep. So conceptually, that's pretty straightforward. Is there a price tag you would be willing to pay to keep Graves, or is this a just take your medicine situation for the Avs if Seattle want him?
If Seattle wants him, you can. The thing with where Colorado is that they, and the reason why they want to lose
Money.
one of these $3 million players is because they can replace that role internally. If it's Ryan Graves, look, it's not going to look the same. They don't have another 6'5" long-haired vampire just hanging out in their prospect farm.
Yeah.
But between Bo Byram and Connor Timmins having bigger roles on the team next year, between Erik Johnson giving you whatever he will give you next year, you can replace what you lost in Ryan Graves. And then, sure, if you wanted to go into free agency, and if he makes it to free agency, then Jamie Alexiak is your perfect replacement, right?
Yeah.
He's going to cost you more than $3.1 million, though. So you need to lose Graves and then probably something else.
I mean, that's
he's not going to free agency to take a discount deal.
The thing is, though, right? The Avs have multiple options there. They have the free agency route. They have the maybe we just play Connor Timmins route. They have the if you're a Jacob McDonald fan, you can drop him into the lineup. Whatever.
Right. Well, and I mean, between Erik Johnson, Bowen Byram, and Connor Timmins, like
that role gets filled one way or another. Yeah.
That's half of a defense that I just listed.
Yep.
And Ryan Graves is arguably the one guy in their top four in the Vegas series that just didn't belong in the top four.
For sure. Yeah.
The one where you're like, look, if he's playing in the Patrick Nemeth role and you put him next to Connor Timmins as your third pairing or next to Erik Johnson as your third pairing, you're feeling pretty good.
You feel real good, I think.
Yeah, I think you do. I think that's a third pairing you really, really like. Regardless, it doesn't even matter. Any combination of those three, you're really happy with that. So, if with Graves, it's just Graves is. It's not that he doesn't have value. Teams always love guys who are 6'5", block shots, are really good team oriented guys. Blah 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 blah. They love guys like that. He's right in the middle of his prime. It's just on this roster they're in a position where they can lose him and replace him. It's not going to look the same. Bo Byram in that role plays a very different style of game, but it's one that's certainly more conducive to the way the Avalanche want to play. Is it the kind of style of play, if you throw him in there with Gerard and Makar and Daves, is it the style of play that's going to win you a Stanley Cup? That's obviously to be determined. But you sure like your chances.
If you know the definitive answer to that question, then I have a job for you in every front office in the league. But
yeah, straight up. Like I know that we're all on the internet and it's easy to say things with confidence, but they're like really, if you actually know that, boy,
yeah. You'll be making a lot of money if you can consistently know those things.
Yeah,
that's for sure. But so the one significant NHL piece that's being exposed is there are multitudes of avenues for the Avs to replace it on the defensive side.
Absolutely.
So, and this is going to be a point that we likely circle back to on the forward side as well, in what I alluded to at the start of. Certainly for the Avs, the expansion draft is very likely a lose your guy and move on. You don't have to do anything fancy.
Yeah. Look, I think there would be some value if they wanted to send their third round pick this year to Seattle and say, take 2 of these guys.
We'll give you one so we free up even more money.
Exactly. Because if they send that pick and they say take JT Compher and Ryan Graves, like we'll give you Ryan Graves in a 3rd round pick to take JT Compher.
All of a sudden that frees up $6.5 million.
Yeah, then you have $6.5 million that have been freed up, and you can do some things.
Yeah, definitely would give them significantly more flexibility on.
You typing in all caps that he's not a good hockey player doesn't make it true.
I feel like you got played because he said Adam Graves.
I just ignored the Adam part.
All right.
People still do that, so I still see the Adam thing happen every once in a while.
In any case, as Chad is referencing, it's Brandon Saad money. We'll get into that conversation in a little bit, but
yeah, I mean it's just with $6.5
you want money, yeah.
With $6.5 million extra, like freed up. Okay, there's a number of different. There's a number of different avenues that they could go. You get into the trade market, you get into. You get into free agency,
Well, and
you have the Alexiak conversation if you want.
Well, this is the magic of replacing that role with a Connor Timmins, with a Bowen Byram, because yes, you freed up $6.5 million, but you do have to replace that spot. You replace it with Connor Timmins,
it's $1 million.
Right. You still have your net gain is like $5.5 million.
Yeah,
of money to play with. If you replace it with an Alexiak, which is fine, maybe you get better at that position, but you're not freeing up as much money because you still had to replace that role that way.
Yeah.
So it just kind of depends on how they want to approach it. Are they freeing up that money to directly replace one of those guys? Are they freeing up that money to potentially bring back a Brandon Saad, or are they freeing up that money to do something in the trade market, free agent market, whatever?
Yeah.
The paths scatter quite quickly.
Yep. I mean, this is the interesting part of Colorado's offseason. Like every offseason, teams have like a path forward, right? The last couple of years, Colorado's had both the cap space and the roster openings and the prospect farm to do whatever they kind of wanted, right?
Yep. To
chase after, to go after. You look at all the guys that they brought in the last couple of years: Brandon Saad, Devon Taves, Nazem Kadri, Andre Burakovsky, Jonas Donskoy, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, Matt Calvert. Like they brought in a lot of different faces in the last couple of years.
Well,
but this year, there's less roster opportunity.
Right.
And like we're like even just talking about a guy like Alexiak. Assume he gets to free agency. Assume Colorado has interest. Assume Colorado has the money. Assume they can find all these middle grounds. He comes to Colorado. Where does he play?
Yeah.
What else? What other decisions got made? Because you do still have. Even if you do lose Ryan Graves in the expansion draft, you do still have Bowen Byram, Eric Johnson, and Connor Timmins are all right there. Jacob McDonald is already under contract as a perfectly fine depth guy. And then you have Justin Barron sitting in the AHL. Where does Jamie Alexiak fit into that picture? There have to be other decisions that get made, where either you're sending Byram to the AHL for some reason, Connor Timmins goes back,
to your original point. Up until this point, especially I think on the defensive side, up until this last year, when the Avs brought someone in, there wasn't anyone on that roster that you're looking at and going, boy, that's a tough scratch. Now, you are making a scratch you don't want to make if you're bringing in someone else.
Yeah. And specifically talking about the defense for sure right now.
Yeah.
Because at forward, it's a really muddied
The Avs have like 3 dudes that could be their 13th forward on that side. It's
we'll get to
weirder bottom there, but yeah.
We'll get to the forwards.
Yeah.
But for right now, I mean, with this defense, it's like they can lose Ryan Graves and just be okay.
Yeah.
Would they love it? No, they wouldn't love it, but
arguably not any worse. Just strictly losing him and replacing him internally.
The one question I would ask, if you're Seattle, even knowing all of the defensemen that are going to be available league-wide, at least the one that we think, before deals start getting made, it looks like it certainly looks like it's a rich environment, right?
All of a sudden, you get to trade for Shea Theodore and also get a decent NHL player. And it's
right.
like, oh, okay, well,
right. So before deals start getting made here, it looks like there's going to be a good environment for them to pick up a defenseman. If you're Seattle, is there any interest in Eric Johnson? You could sell
that.
33 years old isn't dead, but obviously injuries have been a hallmark of his entire career. It's not just recently, it's his entire career. He has struggled with injuries. But the 6 years, $2 million, 2 years left, it's really not that big of a deal, right?
So
like a two year deal at $6 million per, like they can handle that, especially starting from scratch. They can easily take on the $6 million. The real problem is that is he of any real use to them on the ice and like as an off ice, as a leadership guy, as just a great human being?
It makes sense from that standpoint.
Absolutely. Ron Francis is going to be interested in that, but does he actually do anything for them on ice?
And here is where Seattle is going to have to make a decision on who they are trying to be. And realistically, I don't think they're going to try and replicate what happened in Vegas, because Vegas wasn't even trying to do that. It just kind of happened.
Yeah, well, do you remember all the futures that they traded for?
Yeah.
They had like 25 picks in a...
Right. And they ended up shipping out most of them to try and get good
right now. Because like they ended up good and they were like, okay, well now we're in a position where we feel like we have to go for it.
Right. But
great. That's a great position to be in, but that was not their intention.
Right. So to that end in Seattle, I don't see how they can take on EJ at full contract value, because there is no universe where you flip that guy. Especially with Ryan Graves right there for half the price on a 2-year deal that's UFA expiration in the heart of his prime. That dude, if he goes to Seattle and has a solid year, is the biggest trade deadline rental defenseman bait in the world. And we've seen every year someone will give up a first for a defenseman.
I mean, David Savard got a first.
David Savard got a first round pick. And look, we've already seen how hard it is to move money. While it might get a bit easier because teams understand the flat cap that they're under now, it's way easier to move Graves $3 million than it is EJ's $6 million down the line for Seattle. Now, you could get into some crazy scenarios where the Avs look to drop EJ's contract with something retained on Seattle through like a trade mechanic. But
so are you talking about like they trade EJ to Seattle and then say retain $2 million?
Yeah,
because that's the same amount of money that they would have on a buyout. So
anyway, exactly. And then
it's just for 2 years instead of 4.
Right. And then you could do the same thing where in agreement to pick Confer or whatever, and the Avs save $7 million that way or whatever. A different way to get the money savings that they're looking for.
What kind of pick would you have to attach, though?
That's the question.
Like that's probably
I
your
imagine
first,
Seattle's
right?
asking for the first. Yeah.
Like, if you're Colorado, are you so desperate to get rid of that money?
Right. We haven't even gotten to the forwards yet, and we've already come back around to it doesn't have to be this complicated for the Avs, right? Just let them pick their guy. So
yeah, because to me the only contract that I think Colorado should be actively looking to move is Comfers.
Yep, it's the worst of the bunch. For sure.
They've gotten decent value on Donskoi's, right? His analytics haven't been any good in Colorado, but he's produced. He's given them points. You know, his 2 highest goal scoring seasons have been with the Avs, and he's played 65 and 51 games respectively.
Yep.
So now, granted, his 2 highest shooting percentage seasons have also come with the Avs. So how do you balance some of that, right? The reality is that they've gotten good value out of Jonas Donskoi's contract through the first 2 years of that deal. So I don't think that they would be excited to move on from Donskoi. Like, I don't think that they would be. I guess this is third period conversation.
Yeah, but
I'll let you
forwards. So
yeah, I'll let you break us down.
So while we're drifting into the forwards, we talk about hunks of meat on this show a lot. But today we're talking about Haefele Cattle Company. Quality, top tier, top shelf meat. Go get their Wagyu. It's absolutely delicious. Their Wagyu burger is available down at the DNVR bar. They also have a bunch of other amazing meat. And use that DNVR 10 code to get 10% off. Are they still doing the buy 3 get 1 free? Maybe that was for June only. I forget. But check them out. They do have other deals that they run all the time at HaefeleCattleCompany.com for any meat needs you might have. If you get a group order together for $200 or more, you also get free shipping. So check them out today. Also brought to y'all by Strava Craft Coffee, CBD infused coffee, which you can get at the DNVR bar as well. I can't wait until we just have all of our products at the DNVR bar, by the way. Just all of them. Like, we have a significant number now, but we still need to get some in there. With Strava, you can go to their website and get 25% off your first order with code DNVR25, and their subscription service will give you 20% off basically for life. So go down there, check them out as well. If you're looking for less CBD and more THC, then check out Solace Meds. There's a location just a few blocks from the DNVR bar, but 4 different ones in Colorado, including one up north in Fort Collins. So you got plenty of options there. Head on down, get 20% off when you order online for pickup with that DNVR20 code. And then they have a bunch of in-store deals ranging from 10 to 25% off on select products as well. Awesome people, awesome products. They take care of you all the way around. I love the pickup option because you just get in, you get what you want, you get out. You don't have to wander around the store trying to figure out what the difference between all these products are, because I'll be honest, I don't know. And anyway, third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. AJ, Rudo coming at you. Let's get into the forwards. All right. So, assuming they go with 7 protected and not the 4, which we kind of already talked about. If they did, you say expose Kadri. Pretty straightforward there. They're obviously protecting the big 3. 4 and 5 would be Burakovsky and Kadri.
Yeah, I don't. I know that there's been expose Kadri conversations. That's dumb. Don't do that.
Why would you willingly expose an effective 2C? I don't.
Yeah. Winnipeg has been trying to find a 2C for how long? Like, they had to go and get Dubois to do it.
Yep.
You know, they had to give up Patrick Laine in order to try and solve that problem. And so far, it hadn't worked out that great for either side. So,
yeah. Things go so high.
We'll see long term how things play out in a not totally screwed up year. But point is that 2Cs are hard to find. Like, quality second line centers, where these are guys who are 1Cs on bad teams.
Yep. Which
is what Kadri was the first part of his career.
Yep.
It's just there's no logic to this. You can't just be like, well, Alex Newhook exists, and then just pretend that that's enough for Nazem Kadri. That's insane. Not that's something that you do 2 years ago when you're still building up your program and you are just like, well, we've got nobody better.
Yeah,
that's how Tyson Jost ended up in the NHL. What appeared to be a year too early.
Yep.
Although, boy, that's a lot of revisionist history on our part. Just because that wasn't a conversation that was happening when he signed, because he was a point per game guy in North Dakota.
Yeah,
anyway.
I mean, that's a whole other pod where I struggle with saying you rushed a dude into the NHL in general. Like,
yeah, the only time you ever hear that argument is when a guy doesn't reach his potential.
Yeah,
or his perceived potential.
It's not a theory that I believe in at all. You can always send a dude back to a lower level. But anyway, not what this show's about.
Yeah, it's not at all. So we agree that protecting Kadri is pretty easy.
Yeah.
Protecting Landeskog is also easy, even though he's a pending UFA. You just protect him. You don't get cute. You don't try and... You're not so desperate to protect Jonas Donskoy or somebody that... whatever.
Don't be dumb. Protect the face of the franchise.
Yeah, straight up. All right, so then protect Burakovsky, obviously, because if you don't, they take him in a nanosecond, and
that's just a value thing. You just protect that dude.
Like, what are we doing here if you leave that guy unprotected?
Yeah. So that the top 5 is easy.
Yeah, and then after that, I think you and I are probably in agreement that you just protect Tyson Jost and Val Nichushkin.
Yep.
Nichushkin gives you a really important depth role, a reliable guy. You're comfortable with him. You know what you're going to get out of him, and he does one thing at a really, really high level. That's valuable. You keep him. Tyson Jost, same thing, but his is even more about age and price.
Yeah, right. Cost control is what Jost is going to be about more than anything. But
even if that dude signed a long-term deal tomorrow, he would still make less money per year than any of these other guys that we're talking about. And he overtook JT Compher in the lineup this year. I mean, that's just what happened.
Yep.
Compher spent most of his year trying to find a spot or on the fourth line.
Look at the playoffs. Who got promoted to 2C? It was Tyson Jost at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, and when JT Compher also got thrown back kind of into that center mix.
Yep.
And did okay, but didn't do anything that says this guy's definitely better than Tyson Jost.
Yep.
And the scoring was down. It's just different. So, can I picture myself saying protect Nuke 2 years ago? No, but that's also why 2 years ago, when people were trying to do expansion draft projections, they were incredibly stupid back then.
That's why we spent the entire 1920 season we'll talk about the expansion draft later.
Right, because it was a total waste of time. You still have multiple seasons of hockey to be played. You have a lot of information to go in that time, so definitely not. But also why those were dumb back then. And frankly, they really annoyed me. It was just so silly. It was such a waste of time.
So
anyway,
yeah,
you protect.
I think it's easy to protect both of them, especially the way Jost finished the year in the regular season.
Look, if Jost didn't finish the way the year the way that he did, you're not having this conversation.
Yep.
If he didn't finish. Look, his last, including the postseason, his last 35 games or so, he was right about a 40, 45 point pace player.
And that's
while playing an important role.
If he's that guy for even half the year, that's a slam dunk for the Avs. On the role he's going to have on the team. Yeah.
The thing he can't do though, moving forward, is the 3 points in 26 games.
You can't
just
ghost mode. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't just disappear.
Yep.
And so that's where it's tough. It's tough trying to value him on the contract, because you could say, oh well, he finished this way, the whatever, but it was a tale of 2 seasons for him. That first season still matters. That first season is still counted. The 3 points in 26 games or whatever the exact number was, that still happened. You still have to keep that in mind when you're trying to pay this guy money.
The one thing I will say is he did carve out a role for himself defensively, and particularly being a key piece on the penalty kill.
Definitely.
So,
Which was a big problem for him really all of his first several years in the league.
Yeah.
He didn't have a consistent role. He just kept bouncing around. And this last year, they put him in one spot with one consistent line mate in Nichushkin, and Donskoy was a pretty consistent third line mate.
Yep.
If you look at the line mate data, Donskoy is way up there as the third guy on that line, as his second most common line mate for Jost. He got put in a repeatable job, and he did very well with it. It was a good year of major steps forward for Tyson Jost. What other steps forward are there? Does he continue to get better? Does the consistency come? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You protect him to find out.
I mean, right. I think those questions are lessened a little bit by his second half of the season, right? You understand that he's capable of that. How consistent is it? That you're not sure, but somewhere in that bag is potentially a 40-point player.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we've established Jost and Nichushkin as these guys for quite a while this year, but there are a handful of things that could throw a wrench into that.
Jonas Donskoy has been good value for the first 2 years of his contract. He scored 33 goals over the last 2 seasons for you, and he hasn't come close to playing 82 games.
Yep.
Like, that's really, really hard to replace. If you just take out 33 goals from your lineup, if Donskoy is just gone, they have to replace that somehow.
Yep.
Now losing the $3.9 million, okay. Maybe that's where you go out into free agency and you chase a Blake Coleman, and you try and get that guy to replace some of that for you. Just saying, like maybe that's
throwing it out there.
Yeah, well, maybe that's the direction that you go to try and replace that. But it's going to be hard to do internally with any confidence. Now, you and I personally would be like, look, just give Martin Kaut that job.
Sure, but
you give Martin Kaut the right wing job next to Tyson Jost and Val Nichushkin, and I think you'd have a really, really good third line. I love that idea. I love that idea. But I don't think they agree with me.
Clearly, it doesn't seem that way.
So just based on what we've seen so far, it doesn't look like they agree with me. But that's the young guys is kind of an X factor in this conversation. You have Martin Kaut and Shane Bowers and Alex Newhook and Sampo Ranta. All of these guys are trying to find jobs in the NHL. If Logan O'Connor's still around, you figure that he probably takes one of those roster spots full time.
Yeah. How much faith are they willing to put into the kids? Can they commit to a forward kid playing a full-time role on the third line? It certainly seems like they're going to commit to Newhook, but even that's not guaranteed. And again, options are branching here. The Avs have choices to make. I do want to talk about the sexy option, which is if they think they can get a Saad deal done before free agency.
Before free agency and after the expansion draft?
It doesn't matter, before or after the expansion draft. Put themselves in a situation where they feel like it's worth it to protect Saad is the point that I'm getting at. To take one of those last 2 spots.
Oh, that makes life hard.
Yeah, exactly. Because
Nichushkin is reliable, consistent. Yeah. You know what you're getting. You know that offensively he's just going to be kind of a mess for 70% of the season, and he'll absolutely catch fire for a couple of weeks.
Score 6 goals and then
and
nothing. But
a lot of his production will just sort of fall on top of him and bounce off his body in some way. You know that you're not going to get like high end scoring out of him, but you know you're going to get amazing defense.
Yep.
As a third line left wing, we've seen him try and play up in the lineup, and it hasn't translated.
That don't work.
So we know that there are the limitations there, but he's also 26, and he's got 1 year left on his deal at 2.5 until he goes into free agency. Tyson Jost is 23.
Yeah.
Currently unsigned. He's an RFA. I'm just not sure what kind of deal he gets, because I think that would impact. If you're picking between Nichushkin and Jost, I think you go with the younger guy in Jost. He's also the center.
Yep, exactly. A younger center, probably going to be cheaper.
Yeah, at least for right now.
Yeah, in the immediate, at the very least. And then young enough that if it is a shorter term deal, he's an RFA at the end of it, and you can kick that can down the road a little bit.
Yeah.
Whereas,
although he is getting close, man.
Yeah, was he?
I think this was
officially for his first year. I forget.
I think this is year 5 for him.
So it'd have to be a 1 year deal anyway to not take him to UFA, I guess. But
this was his 4th full season, and the first year didn't burn a deal or count to UFA.
Okay. So they could do a 2 year.
Yeah, so they've still got time to play.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's 23, like, it's funny because like the guy has just been young forever. Yep. He was so young when he was drafted. He was so young when he got to the NHL. And even now, he's been an Av for 4 full seasons, and he's only 23 years old.
There's like absolutely an alternate universe where the production will never be the same, but he could be the Avalanche's Brandon Saad, where he's the dude that's around for a couple cups.
Yeah. Kind
of bounces around the league, and then he shows up on some contender, and everyone's like, this dude's only 28? What the hell?
Yeah. Remember, Brandon Saad was on the Young Star, that North America team.
Yep.
That U23, like, just crazy pants loaded team. But he was on that team, and, like, you don't think about him like that.
Yep. Way too many dad vibes to be on that team.
Dude, it's hard to be like Nathan McKinnon and Brandon Saad were on that team together.
Time don't work right. Thank you for more donations to the Yacht Fund, Sasha. Very appreciated. Yeah. So that's the only like internal thing that I could see really throwing a wrench into the Avs' last 2 forward spots. Is
that's a good problem to have, though.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, we have to protect the better player. Sucks to suck, I guess.
Yeah. LA's not splashing the cash at him, trying to get him to sign a 6x6 again.
Yeah. Would be not too shabby for the Avs if they were forced to do that, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. So again, it's just circling back around to round up the scenario. In all of these situations, JT Compher is exposed. Most of them, Donskoy is probably exposed in. Yeah, there may be a case to be made for protecting him, but it doesn't make a ton of sense, asset and financially, for the Avs, even with the quality play from Donskoy. So those are likely the best available forwards there. And then the Avs don't have a lot exposed beyond that because Belmar's a UFA, Calvert's a UFA. Yes, they have Logan O'Connor exposed, but Newhook's going to be exempt. Ranta, obviously exempt.
Yeah.
So it really, I think, boils down to those 2 guys on the forward side is Compher and Donskoy, and potentially Nichushkin, if good things happen as far as other options. But that's more or less what it looks like for Colorado right now.
It's really not complicated.
It isn't for Colorado. They don't have to do a whole lot of dancing around to protect what they want to protect in this one. They could try and get cute with it, as we talked about a little bit, with maybe trying to move out extra money. But beyond that, there's not a whole lot for them to do.
Yeah.
So.
No, we talked about the Landeskog thing, man. You're not going to expose that guy.
Yep. Just don't do it.
It's just, you do that, and then a team that has no players and is going to really struggle to find first-line caliber players has one to build around.
Yeah.
And has an entire has all like $60 million to go to get to the salary cap floor to spend. They could just price you out of it.
Yep.
If you're gonna try and get cute with the expansion draft, this is the exact thing that you do not do in the expansion draft. Oh, well, what happened? What happened? All these teams, they're going to learn from Vegas. You don't trade away this or trade away that or any of that. We had those conversations earlier, and we came to the agreement. Just lose a guy.
Yep.
And when it comes to Landeskog, you don't need to get cute here. You don't need we can, we've got a handshake agreement. We can do this and we can do that. That dude suddenly gets the bug in his ear. Oh, hey, come be Seattle's first captain. Come do all these things. Oh, hey, by the way, we'll give you $3 million more per year than the Avs can afford to.
Just
come be the face of our franchise. Come do any of this stuff, right?
To your point, I believe it is essentially as soon as the protection lists are submitted, any pending UFAs, Seattle can start talking to. So if Landy is unsigned and not protected, Seattle can start talking to him on July 17th.
Yeah, and
which is significantly earlier than everybody else.
To the point of our most recent comment in chat. Now, what are you exposing Landeskog to protect?
Yep.
Is it JT? Is it really JT Compher? Is it really Jonas Donskoy?
Is Jonas Donskoy worth losing your franchise captain?
Like, even putting it out there and even just taking that chance, you're asking to get burned.
Yep.
Now look, if you get away with it, then fine. Like if they do that and they have a handshake agreement, or if Seattle doesn't mess with it, whatever, and they expose Landeskog and Landeskog comes back next year to Colorado and everything's all good and well, then great. You got away with one, but you're asking for problems.
Yep.
And I don't, and in the name of what exactly?
Right. Well, that's the conversation exactly, right? It's a completely different world if there's a deal in place, but you don't just expose him and hope for the best.
Yeah.
It's not a smart thing. It's not a reasonable thing to do.
Yeah. I just don't. If you were talking about like a Landeskog and even like if you had to pick a Landeskog or a Saad, like at least there you're talking about these are both really, really good players that are going to be able to help you.
Maybe at least Saad gives you similar production levels,
right? Like if if Saad is asking for $2 million less per year than Landeskog, you put Saad next to McKinnon and Rantanen, you at least have a shot to reproduce the same kind of numbers.
Yep.
To at least reproduce the same kind of magic on that line. Like you at least give yourself a chance. That would be a conversation. That's not the conversation being had. It's, do you want to expose Landeskog so you can protect Donskoy or Compher?
Player? Yeah.
Or if they choose to protect Donskoy, then you're exposing Landeskog to protect Jost or Nichushkin.
Yeah.
No, you just don't play that game.
Would it become more of a conversation if it was a 4-4? So say they expose Landy, protect Burakovsky and Kadri, and then they protect Graves or EJ and Taves.
Repeat the question.
let's say EJ doesn't waive and the Avs don't buy him out, so they have to 4-4 to protect Taves. And would you protect Burakovsky and Kadri and then leave Landy exposed? Is that a conversation?
Yeah, then I would, because you're already in a terrible spot.
Well, the argument is expose Kadri or expose Landeskog there, I guess, really.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, Burakovsky's only got 1 year left on that deal.
Also true. Yeah.
And like, as much as he's proven his value in the regular season, he's had 2 very different postseasons.
Yeah.
You know, one where he was aces, and then one where he completely disappeared.
Yep.
So, you know, I think Burakovsky's got his own question marks here. But if they get forced into a 4-4 somehow,
which we're in fantasy land at this point, basically.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. I think that pretty much sums up that whole situation.
Yeah.
Again, the Avs don't have to overcomplicate this. Just do the simple thing. Protect the dudes that make sense. Lose your guy and move on. That's really what it's going to come down to. Not going to really cover it any more than that. We're well over an hour on the show here. So final thoughts on the Avs? I think expansion draft list I think really where this conversation gets interesting is I think tomorrow we'll probably dive into the rest of the Central Division.
Yep.
And you'll start to see what other teams are going to be losing in the expansion draft as well.
Yeah. So, there are going to be some teams that are in really tough spots. Like Nashville took a step towards trying to solve some of their problems.
Yep.
But there are some teams that are just not in good shape.
Yep.
They're just not in good shape.
Agreed. So we'll take a look at that tomorrow, but thank you everybody for watching, listening, all that good stuff today. Be sure to like and subscribe to the video here on YouTube. That helps us out a ton. But we are out of here for the day. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend for the 4th of July, and we will talk to y'all tomorrow.